I could tell myself, yeah, I've done the work. I got to just go do what I can control. And
Hmm.
if that's good enough, then cool, it's good enough. I could say it, but I didn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, that.
Now I've internalized, I can believe it that, just the circumstances of everything and me and my, I'm me. I've got a different mind than everybody else, just the circumstances that I went through, I can now actually believe myself when I say, okay, I've done the work. I'm going to go out and do
Warning.
this.
This episode contains adult language and adult humor. Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults? If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this episode is David Cookie Cook. Cookie is a man of many talents. An accomplished orchestral player, Cookie has also developed a reputation for his creative covers of video game music and is the co-founder of the Trumpeters Multi-track Competition. But life for Cookie has not always been a piece of cake. And in this episode, Cookie gets real about his struggles and how he found a way to develop a fresh attitude about the trumpet and life. So, pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. Welcome to this episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang, and this is a first-time hang for me, and my guest for this episode, Mr. David Cook. Cookie, what's shaking?
Not too much. I just got done tracking some stuff, some lead trumpet stuff, which is, back in high school, I wanted to be a studio player, and I went to Interlochen and studied with Ken Larson. And, if you don't know Ken, he did the studio thing out in LA for quite a while. So he was like the perfect guy to study with for that. And then I got to my undergrad and I went down the orchestral path, shall we say. It was to quote my best friend from that time, I screwed up and had a really good audition the first year. And it put me in all the ensembles, and I didn't really have enough time in the day or enough chops to do all that. So I ended up going down the route of the classical, and now that I'm out of school, I've got a space, I've got time, and we all have a lot of free time this last year. I'm doing a little bit more commercial stuff. So I was just trying out some new mouthpieces from Venture, and they're awesome. You should buy them. I'm kidding. Well, no, I'm not kidding. But
No. Kidding, not really. So when did you finish your degree?
I finished my master's. That would have been May 2017. I actually did not attend my graduation ceremony because I was at the ITG International Excerpts Competition at the exact same time as my ceremony. So priorities were definitely, I had my priorities, and I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, well, good for you. Good for you. You've got a lot of really interesting stuff going on, and I'm going to try and get to as much of it as possible. But yeah, you have a wonderful little studio set up back there. I really love that. Yeah, so it looks great. But you do a lot of multimedia stuff. So yeah, let's get into that a little bit. What's got your
where to start? Okay. So, like I said earlier, I studied with Ken Larson in high school, and one of my required materials for trumpet lessons was to buy a Zoom H2. And so, since high school, I've been recording myself, but it was for a practice tool. You could play something, listen back to it, and go, "This is exactly what happened." And I call it the humble box, and I think any of us that have recorded, we know what that's like. I'd like to say it gets better, but you just get better at hearing yourself and cringing less and less. So yeah, throughout my entire undergrad, it was all purely as a practice tool. And then throughout my master's, it was mostly a practice tool again. And at the end of my undergrad, Jeff Lewandowski introduced me to half-speed playback, which if you think you don't sound good on a recording, just put it at half speed. You'll think you'll sound worse. But it also happens to be like the cheat codes to figuring out trumpet and getting better. So that was purely, it was all, practice tool materials. And then one summer I decided to record all of the Chickowitz flow studies. A lot of people think the flow studies are dee da da dee da da da. I believe those are actually the long tone studies, and the flow studies are a series of etudes. And I recorded the first book. It was a really neat summer project. Again, it wasn't for having an online presence or anything. It was just practice tool. I was having this problem in my playing. I wanted to address it. I record one etude a day. I post it online, and I put pressure on myself because it's online. It's up there forever. You go to my YouTube, you can still see them. For better or worse, it's a reflection of who I was. Oh, here, let me turn that off. My air conditioning unit is quite noisy, so we're going to give that a second. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, so I did that, and then, again, just practice tool. Then Jeff Lewandowski, the same guy that did the half-speed recording thing for me, he ended up winning a job with the Army Field Band, and I met up with him. I said, hey, man, what did you do that set you over the edge this last time? Because he had made finals quite a lot, and he was being very successful in auditions, but this was the first one that he won. He said, well, I drove down to Sweetwater, and I spent about $500 on a decent microphone and an interface, and I could hear exactly what was going on. I said, well, $500, and that put him over the edge? I think I can swing that.
Yeah.
So I drove down to Sweetwater. I bought an SE VR2 ribbon microphone. I went just a little bit over my budget, but I had a really great microphone, and I could hear exactly what was going on. So in order to test this microphone, this is where it all starts. In order to test the microphone, I did a multi-track recording of the flugelhorn section from Cyclone by Eric Morales. And I posted that online as just like a, hey, look what I've got. Then everybody's like, oh, man, that's so awesome. You should record the whole piece. So I recorded the whole piece. And my buddy Marcus Grant, who, if you don't know him, you should go check out his stuff. We started a trumpet competition together. You should definitely go check that out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Marcus said, hey, that was really awesome. I've got this arrangement of the Haydn, Hummel, and Neruda trumpet concertos for 7 trumpets plus solo trumpet. Do you want to record those? And so I recorded the Hummel, and that kind of blew up. And then I had another composer, Devin Clara Fanslau. She reached out to me. I recorded her pieces. Then I started working with Jonathan Meade and Ken Wyatt and all these people. And it all came from I bought a microphone as a tool.
Right.
And it's just blown up from there.
Yeah. Well, it's actually kind of interesting because I had a conversation with Tom Walsh from London. He's a Royal Academy. Does a lot of session work there. And we were talking about some of the stuff that he does in terms of his studio work. And he got into home recording basically for the same reason, as a way of testing things out. And hearing how things sound, and now that's turned into a very lucrative side of his business. So you never know. When you get involved with something, you may think that you're doing this for this one specific reason, but then it kind of opens a door for a whole different approach to stuff. So. I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm going to be like very, very much like a squirrel, kind of thing going on here. But you'd already kind of hinted at the Trumpet Multi-track competition that you guys have set.
Yep.
That was fascinating. I mean, the idea behind that is really fascinating. So I just want to kind of get the backstory, and really I want to know whether you guys are going to continue with that now that we're exiting the COVID crisis.
Yeah. So short answer is yes. We are going to have season 2, and that's going to continue. How did this start? It's really funny that I'd been working with Marcus online for about 2 years by that point, and I've known Marcus since, well, I don't want to talk about how long I've known him because it makes me feel old. And I know I'm not that old, but Marcus and I have known each other.
Than you, dude. Come on.
Yeah, I know. Marcus and I have known each other for about 10 years now. So that's, a good chunk of my life. And there's this other guy who I had not met before this point, Brandon Dix, and he's also a multi-track extraordinaire. And Marcus set up this Zoom meeting with us, and he goes, "Hey, I want to do this project with you guys." And I don't know how it came up, but we were supposed to do this recording together, and that's how it started. We had this Zoom meeting, and I don't know who brought it up. I don't know how exactly it started, but by the end of the meeting, and it was funny. It was this 3-hour meeting. I didn't expect it to last this long. And I finished up and I came upstairs and I was talking to my parents. I said, "So I just started a trumpet competition with Brandon and Marcus." And I don't know exactly how it happened. That whole meeting was a blur. It was the fastest 3-hour Zoom meeting of my life. And that was, oh gosh, that was probably like late August, early September. I'm not exactly sure when it started, but the whole thing has been, the three of us work together so well. There's so much optimism between the three of us. We can be realistic about things. If something's not going to work or if something's a bad idea, any one of us will definitely say, "Hey, this is a terrible idea. We shouldn't do this." And, it happens. So we had sort of taken the idea of NTC. I think we decided we were going to do this, and very shortly after, NTC announced that they were going to do all online for the trumpet ensembles. Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, why don't we have an ensemble category as well? But the idea was that, we have this trumpet competition that's unlike anything ever before, and what a better time. Everybody got into doing recordings and stuff. And, we were just talking about just before, if your mom said to you, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But there's a lot of productions out there that came out this last year, and it's a valiant effort to any sort of a multi-track at all. If you don't know what goes into it, it's the amount of work that anybody puts into it, no matter what the result is impressive in itself.
Right.
But there's a lot of them that you're out there. Well, if you just did this one little thing, it would be so much better. Or, you do this thing. So we decided to have a competition, but also to have a seminar where you learn how to do this stuff. So Marcus, Brandon, and we put together a whole 7-session seminar, and 3 of those, wait, how many was it? 3? It might have been more than 7. Hold on. I should know this, but I don't. There were 3 audio, 3 video, and 1 lighting, basically. So we had like audio basics, like what is a microphone? What does it do? What are the different types of microphones? What's a ribbon versus a condenser? And then we had, here's how you mix, here's how you master, all the, basically it was a lot of information. I felt drained after every single one of them. And we had one for lighting. That's a huge part of video, is lighting and framing. And then we had video editing. Brandon ran those. And it was just so cool. And then we worked like dogs, man. We actually decided in December that this was going to be a part-time job. And every weekday we met for 3 hours in the morning. And then we had our submission deadline, and we put together the video from all the submissions, and I'd say it was a hit, man. It came out really well. I'm really proud of it, and I know Marcus and Brandon are too, and we're really looking forward to the next year. It's gonna be cool. We were worried about, once, we're obviously not quite through the whole COVID thing yet, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. Things are starting to return to normal. We were kind of worried about, was next year going to be even possible? But, we've heard back from so many people that they're excited about it, and I can't say too much because I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but we're looking forward to some things changing up for next year.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm a firm believer that there's opportunities that exist in everything. So even in the worst situation, there's going to be an opportunity that's there. It's just a question of whether you find it and whether you take it. And one of the things that I think that has become, has been brought to the forefront of our attention as a result of the pandemic is the use of technology, the virtual world. And whether it be for things like, what we're doing right now to do this podcast, whether it's, the trumpet competition, workshops, and even remote working, people for years would say, well, no, you can't do it. And the reason why they say that you can't do it is because they hadn't done it.
Yeah.
It can be done, and it will be done. So I think now that the genie has been let out of the bottle, if you will, you're going to see that there are going to be a lot of people there'll be people that jumped on the bandwagon because that was the only way they were going to do something. And then once they go back to the old way, then there's going to go back, migrate back. But I think there's going to be a percentage of people that are like, no, there's a tremendous amount of value in this. And just what I'm doing with the podcast, and I think where I see what you guys are doing fitting in is that, things, the traditional venues like, the NTCs and the ITGs and the things like that, they're going to exist. And they're great. They're great for people to go and do those things. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody's got the money to do it. Not everybody's got the time to do it. And so when you start to utilize technology, when you utilize the use of doing a virtual trumpet ensemble, of doing things like we're doing, having a virtual hang, you remove those restrictions of time and space, and to some degree money, for a large degree money.
Yeah.
But I think that it opens a door to people who would not, in a lot of in the normal world, would not have had access to those same opportunities. Now you're giving them to them, and I think that for people like you and me, that see the value in this, that it's going to continue and it's going to grow.
Mm-hmm. And that was definitely something that we did do. We opened up our competition to North America, so everybody in Mexico and Canada. Unfortunately, we didn't have any international applicants this year. But one of the things that we hope to do either next year or in the future is have an actually truly open worldwide competition. And I don't know how many of those exist, and certainly there's none of them that are operating like we are. There's a lot of international competitions. I did compete in quite a few. But, going back to the financial aspect of it, doing a trumpet competition in France when you live in Michigan is really expensive. And for us, it's just going to be, well, you make a video and you pay the entry fee and boom, you're in this international competition. And one of the big goals with it, and what we saw, was this chance to create a community, because there's so many people out there that are multi-tracking, but everybody's kind of doing it in their own thing. And, we're all trumpet players, even the nicest, sweetest trumpet players, we get defensive and be like, oh, I'm doing this thing and so-and-so is also doing this thing. We're competing. Well, yes, but as Marcus brings up quite a lot in our meetings, rising waters lift all ships, right. I believe is what he says. Yeah. And it's so true. If somebody does this thing in their video and it just makes it so much better, I can go like, hey man, what did you do there? That's so cool. And then they can tell me what they did, and I can like mess around with that, and maybe I can experiment and change something and make it even better, or I make it worse. But I tried it, and it's something, it's just opens up this community, which is so cool, because we need more positivity in the trumpet world.
Are you positive about that?
I am 100% positive. Okay,
all right. Just want to make sure. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that as well. Community is crucial. Whether it be just the general support system, but also it's kind of like sharing processing.
Oh yeah.
So you could do this on one computer, or you could do it on a network of computers. And when we have more brains working, we have more levels of creativity working, we're going to find newer solutions, we're going to find better innovations, and that's what's going to help to move our art form to the next level. And
Absolutely.
and I love what you're saying, like about competition. That yeah, I don't. In some ways, I don't like competition, and coming from someone who's a competitive athlete, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but I always looked at competition as, or try to always look at competition as being, I'm basically competing with myself,
Yeah.
where it's about I want to push my level higher, but left to my own devices, I'm inherently lazy. So if I don't
Hmm.
have anything to push me, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna sit on the couch.
I
But
get that.
but when I see people that are doing things that maybe go, damn, how did they learn to do that? How did they get to do it? What did they, and start to talk to people and sharing that passion and getting those insights, because some of the best relationships I've made have been with people who were my fellow competitive athletes. It's like, we
Hmm.
would sit and talk about our training concepts and the things that we did to, it's like, this is what I did. Okay, well, I'm going to try that. Like you're saying, and that's what helps to then raise the level of all the participants. So in the trumpet world, there's certainly a level of ego. I, let's face it, particularly in certain aspects of the trumpet world. But to see you guys working together on this, I think it has a lot of value. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens in the future. So let's talk a little bit about the multi-tracking stuff,
Yeah.
just like the technical side, because you've been doing, you've got your stuff that you've been doing. What has been the most challenging aspect of the work that you've been doing for yourself in terms of multi-tracking?
Um. So it evolves, of course. I've been doing this basically since January 2019, and as the stuff that I do gets harder, it obviously gets more and more difficult to manage stuff. The first one, the video editing, was a complete and total nightmare. I have to say it was. I think I actually had to re-record the video 4 different times for my very first project. So I'd say the hardest part, and I'm failing horribly at it, is the gear acquisition disease
Uh,
involved in all of this. I'm speaking into this microphone. I've got a Barkley microphone. I've got a suitcase full of microphones there. I've got my camera. I've got all the lights. I'm in this studio. So on a personal level, that is the hardest to cope with, and on a financial level, that is obviously the most difficult to cope with. But oh gosh, I don't. It's hard to think of this as difficult because it's just it's. I'll rewind a bit. That I was doing this in January 2019. I started with it, and then I did the stuff with Marcus over the course of summer 2019, and then I was kind of doing a couple things, and then all of a sudden, March 11th, 2020 happened, and I have a couple free weeks. Let's knock out some projects, and then it's been more than a couple of weeks, but
man.
and it side note that it's really interesting to go back and listen to the early episodes of this and see how optimistic we all were that it was going to be over in just 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
How wrong we were. But I think the time management part is the most difficult, actually, now that I've sort of talked my way through it. The trumpet playing part is, that's an acquired skill. Obviously, trumpet playing is an acquired skill, but recording yourself is a bit of a skill. Once you've got it down, though, it's just, you've got to execute that skill. But the time management, that's always something you're going to have to deal with your projects, be it a deadline that you have, carving time out to make a project happen, or not neglecting other parts of your life because you're in the middle of a project. That's something that I tend to do. I get lost in my work and forget about things, and I have alarms on my phone for all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that's aside from all of the very technical parts, those are all not easily learned, but you can learn how to record yourself. You can learn how to video edit. You learn how to play the trumpet. All these things, but something that will always be present in working on these projects is definitely time management.
Yeah. Well, that's the one resource that we have the hardest time with, I think. And I think the people that are the most successful are those who have mastered the skill of time management.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with your YouTube channel, one of the things I've noticed is that you seem to have, or at least recently, a fascination with music from video games.
Oh, yeah.
So let us in on that.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit, as always. It was late 2018, and I went down to Arkansas. As you might have guessed, I'm from Michigan. I ended up playing with the Arkansas Music Works brass band, and I met this guy who was playing timpani there. His name was Andrew Thompson, and he runs a YouTube channel called Orchestral Fantasy. And I didn't know any of this about him other than the fact he was playing timpani with the brass band, and we went to a championship together, and we actually ended up winning the championship. And I came back to Michigan after that, and I got my microphone fairly shortly after that and started recording things. And I believe it was December 2019, Andrew sent me a message, and he goes, "Hey man, you see you're recording a lot of stuff. Do you mind tracking for this video of mine?" And if you haven't seen any of Andrew's videos, you should check them out. Andrew does all of that himself. He plays all instruments. He can, he's a keyboardist. He plays recorder, harp, all of the string instruments, all of the wind instruments. It's, he's one of those guys that I'm just jealous of how many things he can do, in addition to all of the arrangements that he does, and they're very realistic sounding. So I've always had a fascination with video game music. It's really, really cool, and about, December 2019, I started tracking stuff for him, and then January of this year, I decided, hey, I want to start doing some stuff of my own. It sort of came out that, the content that I make, trumpet content, is, I think a lot of people would like it if they saw it, but, how many people will search day by day trumpet solo on YouTube? That's not going to happen. But, I know when I was in high school, I searched Final Fantasy trumpet, and, some stuff came up, and I got interested in video game music that way. So it sort of came about because I'm interested in it, and I think it's really cool. The Final Fantasy VII soundtrack is one of the coolest bits of music that you'll ever hear. And I've always been fascinated with it. And it's very programmatic music. It tells a story. And that's something that some misses. But it tells a story. It keeps you engaged, but it's not obtrusive, if that makes any sense. It's sort of like a movie soundtrack, but for a video game. And, I've always enjoyed it, but it partially was because, hoping to get a little bit more traction on my YouTube video. But it's a lot of fun to record this stuff and arrange it. So it's, multifaceted, but it all started with Andrew Thompson and saying, "Hey man, can you record?" And remember, it was the Hyrule Field theme from A Legend of Zelda. And the very first video that I did with him, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to wear an elf hat and a green shirt because it's supposed to be Link." And I look back at that video and go, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that." But
seemed like a good idea at the time.
It absolutely was.
Yeah. But now it's out there forever.
Exactly. And that video has quite a few views because that's a pretty popular track. So, there's a lot of people out there, and it's funny. Anytime I'm in one of his videos, I'm obviously in this studio now, but that's a fairly recent thing. Before I was just in one of the rooms in my parents' house in the basement, and I was not comfortable showing all of my stuff in the background of my video. So I had this black curtain, and there's a lot of comments on his videos about, oh, the trumpet in the black void can't hurt you. So it's a really cool community of people too. Like, it's a very niche thing, people interested in video game music and even smaller live renditions of video game music, but it's a really cool community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, and it's funny because that word has made numerous appearances today. Community, so and I'm not talking about the television show either, but that is one of my enjoyable guilty pleasures. But when you talk about community, you went to Interlochen, so
Yep.
was the atmosphere there more on the everybody's in the, stay in their lane kind of thing, or was it a very strong community in your time there?
So that's a really interesting question because, I grew up, I live in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, in South Central Michigan. It's about 20 minutes to the nearest anything from my house. So I'm not necessarily close to a lot of people. And growing up, for elementary and middle school, I actually went to a private Lutheran school. And my 8th grade class was 8 people.
Wow.
And then my first 3 years of high school, I went to Jackson High School. And I went from 8 people in my 8th grade class to over 700 in my 9th grade class. And I had my friends and stuff, but it was still coming from this kind of small town Michigan area. And I got to Interlochen, and everybody there was so open and welcoming and just like generally open as people. And that wasn't who I was at that time. Now I'm very outgoing and friendly, but I just, I had never experienced, that sounds weird to say it, but I'd never had experiences with people from all around the world and people from all sorts of different backgrounds. There were, children of billionaires there, and then there was little old me from middle of nowhere, Michigan. And, it really was, there was this really, everybody's in it together type of thing. But I had a couple close friends when I was there, and I sort of stayed out of that. I was definitely staying in my own lane just because I was getting overwhelmed by all the people there and all the different things that they were doing and where they came from. I mean, it was so cool to experience, and I feel like I navigated it all right. But if I could go back again with some like more world experience going into that, that would just be so much cooler.
Yeah, yeah. So when you graduated, what was your vision for your career?
My dream was, when I graduated from Interlochen, I absolutely wanted to be a studio player. And so for me, it was actually very, very close. The whole college audition thing was really weird. Again, this is one of those things. I'm happy with where I ended up. I love my life now. But high school David was an idiot, man. He auditioned at Michigan State because he knew that school. Mm-hmm. He auditioned at Grand Valley because he'd done the trumpet seminar there a couple times, and he knew that school. And was like, well, I could probably get into those. I auditioned at Juilliard because it was Juilliard. And then I also heard a lot of people talking about this place called Eastman, this place called Oberlin, and this place called DePaul. So that's how I picked the schools to audition for. I showed up to Eastman School of Music and auditioned, and I had no idea who Jim Thompson was.
Mm. Well, that could work to your advantage in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in a similar vein, I showed up at DePaul, and I the whole audition there, you remember that really bad snowstorm that was like early 2011 that basically dumped 3 feet of snow on Chicago and all of Pennsylvania was a sheet of ice?
Yeah, yeah.
My parents drove up from my house to Interlochen on that Thursday in the middle of that storm. Friday, we drove from Interlochen through Canada, through Buffalo to Rochester. Saturday, we drove after my audition at Eastman. So I auditioned at Eastman Saturday morning, and then we left Rochester and drove south of Lake Ontario in Erie down to Chicago. And then I had my audition at DePaul, and we were concerned about making it back to Interlochen on Tuesday. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it was this really like the worst absolute time to be driving Interlochen, Rochester, Chicago to Interlochen and back, because It was, the whole upper Midwest was literally a sheet of ice. And my audition at DePaul, I got there a couple hours early, and we were concerned about getting back to Interlochen, and they said, well, we've got a somebody canceled and you can go in about 20 minutes. I was like, well, I guess I'll warm up and do this audition, and then I can get back, we'll have more time on the road. And so I auditioned for Matt Lee and Tage Larson. No clue who either of them were, on about 20 minutes worth of notice. And like, that's how I just approached everything back then. It was, it was crazy.
Yeah. So, but,
anyway, that was a really long way to say I had those schools and I wanted to be a studio player. So Eastman and Oberlin were my top two choices. And I didn't, I got a substantial scholarship from either one, but I couldn't afford to go to either one. And Grand Valley, I didn't get any scholarship at because, it was a really, really strong program. So the school's attitude towards it was, we'll get people who will come no matter what, so we're not going to give any trumpet scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
So Grand Valley, without any scholarship, then Eastman or Oberlin with the scholarship that I had. And I really wanted to go to one of the other two schools, but my parents just put their feet down and said, we will not co-sign a loan for you. And I was so angry at them, but that was the best decision that was the best thing they ever did for me, because, I can't imagine going to music school for a trumpet degree and walking out of there with $120,000 in debt, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to be a studio player, but then I got to Grand Valley, and like I was saying earlier, I had auditioned really well, and I didn't have time to be in the big band anymore. Didn't have time to do any sort of commercial work, and it all sort of just focused me towards the orchestral path.
Mm-hmm. So now that things have kind of shifted, the sands have shifted,
Mm-hmm.
and especially now, with the multi-tracking and things like that, do you see yourself doing more commercial work and studio work?
Absolutely. If there's anything that this past year has shown us, is that you don't need to go out to, you don't need to live in Nashville. Yeah, it helps. I mean, I just watched Vinny's episode, and, you can't be on that many sessions if you live in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, because you couldn't make it to them. But I'm really thankful that I have two orchestral positions in some regional orchestras here. And going back to that balance thing, time management, is that I've really got to figure out, okay, how will I balance my orchestral work? And, I also have this guilty pleasure of playing in brass bands and dedicating way too much time and money and driving for those and doing the studio work. It's all really cool. And, it tickles that itch that I had at the end of high school that I wanted to be a studio player. I don't think I would do very well in LA. That's a whole different topic. I'm, going back to the whole, I grew up in the middle of the woods in Michigan. I lived in Montreal for a couple years, and it was just anxiety inducing being on an island with 3 million people and like 5 bridges off the island. That didn't work for me.
Yeah. So
I'm grateful to have the resources that I do here, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, there's a piece that comes with understanding I don't want to use the word limitations. With understanding what's really important to you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and some people call them non-negotiables, and just saying, these are the things I really don't, these are things that I can't do without, and these are the things that I don't want to put up with.
Yep.
And just being super, super clear on those two. And sometimes they're in conflict, but you have to decide, what is the most important thing. And, redefining stuff is important a lot of times, I think, because, we start out with these very, very narrow views of what we want to do and what success looks like to us. And if you really start to dig down beneath those layers and you start to find out that, well, it's not necessarily being a studio trumpet player. I just, that's great. But, I just want to play trumpet, man. I just want to play trumpet. Well, there's a hell of a lot more opportunities just to play trumpet than there are to just track sessions. And, so that's, I think to me that's kind of that's a sign of maturity, of growth and wisdom.
And it's really funny that you bring up the whole like very narrow views. 'Cause that was me. Some people that I had worked with, they'd be like, well, what do you want to do with your life? Well, I want to play trumpet and find a way to, feed my family with that. And then I was told, no, that's not, no, you have to have really specific, really focused goals. And so it got to the point where you could ask me and I could say with a straight face, I want to be the principal trumpet of the Cleveland Orchestra. And, I absolutely love playing in the orchestra. If I had an opportunity to do that at this point, would I? I don't know, because that would leave me not enough time to play in a brass band. It wouldn't leave me enough time to do these videos and stuff. And it wouldn't, it would require all of my time. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it wouldn't be an immediate yes. Maybe I would think about it and, figure out if that's really, really what I want to do, or do I like doing these other things. But, talking about peeling back the layers, I had a really, really, really rough time in my master's degree. It was a whole bunch of different things. I know I said I didn't really want to talk about this, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Because I think it's important that people, especially college age people, know that. And I won't talk about what happened. I'll just say it was a really, really rough time for a lot of reasons. I talked about how anxiety inducing it was to be on an island with 3 million people and, like I said, 5 bridges. That didn't work out for me. I really came to terms with the fact that if I wanted to be an orchestral trumpet player, there's no New York Philharmonic, there's no Cleveland Orchestra in middle of nowhere, middle of the woods, Michigan. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't live out in the middle of the woods or have enough space to branch out, because there's several people. There's a couple members of the Montreal Symphony that they live off the island, and they have decided they want to live further away from the city, and the consequence of that is you have a commute. Yep. And if you've got a service that requires you be there at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, well, either you have to get up ridiculously early and battle with traffic, or you have to just suck it up and get a hotel or stay with somebody that night. And so I've kind of figured out that, yeah, I don't want to live in a city. I've had a couple people say, like, well, how do you figure out who you really are? Well, I had these really specific goals about who I wanted to be. And I ended up finding it much easier to take a whole bunch of things that I don't want to be and say, okay, I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be like this. And then you peel away those layers and all of a sudden you get, well, okay, there's Cookie. That's who I want to be. And, it's kind of negative. Intrinsically it is negative, saying like, I don't want to be that. Mm-hmm. But I found it much easier to really come to terms with who I am, what I am, instead of going, I want to be this. Well, I don't want to be this. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be, how to say it in a nice way. I don't want to be bitter about what I do. Yeah. And if I ever, and I've always said this, and I've come really close a couple of times, if I ever don't enjoy playing the trumpet anymore, I'm going to quit. Mm-hmm. And I've come very, very close a couple of times now. But circumstances always, it's always worked out in my favor. But, I want to talk about that really quick.
Okay, yeah, let's do it, man.
And I had a mentor. Things were kind of rough, and this mentor and I were talking, and he said, well, if you ever really, really, really want to quit, give me a call and we'll talk about it. I never quite got to that point, but there was one time at the end of my undergraduate degree, my professor went on sabbatical, and the person who came in, I will not mention any names, but the person who came in for sabbatical replacement, we didn't get along. We had the very first lesson. It was kind of clear that it wasn't going to work out, but I just said to myself, okay, I'm going to have 13 more of these. I just got to suck it up and be done with this. And then my old professor called me and said, hey, how was your lesson with so-and-so? I said, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you asked, here's, it was not good, and this is why. And, word got out to that person that happened, and things got a lot worse, and they wouldn't necessarily have gotten worse if it weren't for, that supposed to be confidential phone call not being confidential. Mm-hmm. So, and there's a lot of regrets with that, because, I have no relationship with the person that came in at sabbatical replacement, absolutely none whatsoever. And it's something that I really wish and not for personal gain or anything, like, it's just like that person doesn't like me. It hurts me that somebody doesn't like me, like, right. That's who I am.
Right.
But throughout that whole semester, things were really tough. And I remember I had a particularly bad lesson, and I was sitting in world music of all courses. And I was just, I was sitting there basically crying in the class, and I had my laptop up and I was taking notes. But in reality, I was signing up for welding courses at the local community college. And I had decided, okay, I have like one more semester. I'm going to finish up my undergraduate degree in trumpet, and then I'm going to go get welding certifications, and I'm going to go be a welder. And that's always been like my go-to is, if trumpet doesn't work out, I'm going to go be a welder, because that makes money. It interests me enough. So I was very close to quitting then. I don't really know what happened. I had said, I'm just going to stick this out, finish up my undergraduate degree. The tables turned, and I was okay with continuing on with trumpet after that point. Mm-hmm. And to be clear, there's no shame in hanging up the horn. I know there's a lot of stigma about that, and that's kind of why I'm talking about this. Then the next time was, I had just finished up my master's degree at McGill, and I basically got from my professor up there, Paul Merkello, and he said, hey, you need to send your resume to this person. No other information. And so I sent it on, and I said, by the way, what did I just send my resume for? And it turned out to be a one-year position was open with the Thunder Bay Symphony. And, it just so happened to work out that I ended up getting the gig. And so I moved up to Thunder Bay, Ontario, which, if you don't know where that is, go to Chicago and go about 700 miles straight north. It's on the north shore of Lake Superior. I got to feel what minus 59 degrees Celsius feels like. But I had the gig. I was playing principal trumpet in an orchestra for a year, and it was the coolest thing ever. And then the audition for the full-time position happened, and I didn't get the gig. And that messed with me. And Something else I want to try and sort of destigmatize is I started taking beta blockers after that audition. That was the last one that I wanted to really swallow up my pride and say, I can do this. I know I can play the gig. I did it for a year. I've subbed in the Montreal Symphony. I know I can do it. But the auditions were elusive to me. It wouldn't be any one big thing. I don't have debilitating nerves, but it was enough. A couple things, taking a couple percent off the top was enough to put me at like 85 or lower percent of my, my normal. Mm-hmm. You don't win an audition on the best day of your life. You win an audition on any day of your life. So I started taking beta blockers. So I had this audition in Thunder Bay, which I didn't get. That sort of affected my psyche. And then I wanted to try beta blockers. So I took 2 local auditions for part-time orchestras here in Michigan. And that was purely experimental. There was nothing I didn't want the gigs. I was going to move back to Montreal. That was going to be the plan. So I tried, we messed with dosing and stuff with my doctor, but that was all of a sudden that was 3 no's in like 4 weeks. Very, very rapid succession, 3 failures at auditions. And then I had this audition. It was for the 3rd trumpet, associate principal trumpet in Montreal. A couple days before the audition, I was taking a lesson with somebody, and I just broke down. I said, I have no business auditioning for this orchestra right now. Like, this is not gonna happen. And it was Chris Smith that I was playing for. And he goes, okay, fair enough. If that's what you think, sure. Now that that's out of the way, what do you have to do to play this excerpt successfully at this audition? Well, I have to do this and this. He goes, great, go do that. Don't worry about that you're not supposed to be auditioning for the Montreal Symphony. Don't worry about all this other stuff. Just show up, play that excerpt that way. That's all you can do. You can't control how they feel. You can't control anything else, just what you do.
Right.
And then go do that for the next excerpt. And, I didn't have much time to really let that soak in. And I went and did that. And, it wasn't a horrible experience. I actually feel like I did fairly well, all things considered, considering 3 days prior that I was, had a complete and total breakdown, didn't think I should be auditioning for that orchestra. And then, I was going to move back to Montreal. I was going to move in with my girlfriend at the time, and we had a horrible breakup. So I moved back to Michigan because, I was on a visa in Montreal, so I had an expiration date there. So upon several people's advice, I moved back to Michigan where, there was no expiration date, and I started getting into the scene. And it was the Louisville principal trumpet audition. And I showed up, and I was, pretty down from the breakup, pretty in my head about all the other auditions that I had lost earlier that summer. And I show up, and I'm in the last block of the day. And I don't know why it got mentioned, but I drew the last person in the last block of the day. And somebody's like, oh, well, you're the last person to go for prelims. Like, no, don't tell me that, man. So, I knew I was the very last person in prelims. And I played 2.5 excerpts, and I got a thank you. Because I was not in a good mental place. I didn't even stick around. I left. It was like, I played 2.5 excerpts. I know I didn't play them well. I know I'm the last person. They've heard, 100 other people at this point. There's no point in sticking around. So I hopped back in my car, and I had decided, okay, that's it. I had a good run. I know I can play the gig. I know I can play the trumpet, but auditions are not going to happen. And this was still, David was, I want to be principal trumpet of this orchestra, David. And so I had said to myself, okay, we're done. I'm going to finish out everything that I've agreed to do, but I'm not going to accept any more work. I'm just going to finish out my schedule. I'm going to practice, and I'm going to do the absolute best that I can for all of those things. But after that, we're done. And so I showed up the next week to a gig with the Flint Symphony, and the personnel manager for Flint is also the personnel for Saginaw. Those are the two orchestras that I play for now, so you can kind of see how this story ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, Greg goes to me. He's like, "Hey, I didn't see your name for the second trumpet audition in Saginaw. Are you gonna be there?" I said, "Second trumpet audition, Saginaw? What?" He goes, "Yeah, we got a second trumpet audition in Saginaw next week. I'd love to see you there." I'm like, okay, there's an audition next week. He said he wanted to see me there. I'm done. But Greg said he wanted to see me there. So I literally showed up at this audition, not even on a professional level, not wanting to disappoint Greg, because I was done. I was done. But on a personal level, I said, it hurt me when somebody doesn't like me. I want to reciprocate that. He said he wanted me to be there. I'll be there. And, I didn't care about this audition. And I went and I played really well because I didn't care.
Right.
I was out of my own head. And I won that gig. And I was like, well, I didn't care about it. But it would be really, really crappy of me to go show up to this thing and play well, and they want to hire me, and then I say no. And that sort of taints the water for anybody else that, if I had won, me saying no, I just showed up on a lark, and then not taking the gig, it's just not good all around. So I guess I'm going to stick this out then. And yeah, I did feel pretty good about it at that point.
Yeah.
So, I stuck it out, and then a little while later, they had a third trumpet audition in Flint. It's actually for the same person, the person that was there in both orchestras. I'm now in both orchestras in that chair, so it's kind of funny. And I was trying to figure out, it's like, well, the key is not to care. But obviously, I really care about this because this would be a great thing to have. And for that whole audition, how earlier I talked about recording yourself and, that's on the internet forever. Well, my approach to that audition was I recorded mock rounds every single day, and I sent those mock rounds out to people. If they listened to them, cool. If they didn't listen to them, whatever. If I got feedback, awesome. If I didn't get feedback, who cares? But the point was, that was out there on the internet, and if that person wanted to share them, I would be a little bit upset, but it's a completely different feeling knowing that what you put out there is out there forever. You can't take it back. So that was my preparation for that audition. And then I heard mock rounds. My friends absolutely loved me, by the way, for those couple months that I was just bombarding them.
Yeah.
But after about 100 mock rounds, they said, I'm sick and tired of these excerpts. I can't wait for the audition to be over. Wait, I'm sick and tired. I don't want to be here. That's it. That's the thing. So, I went and I did pretty well at that audition, I would say. And so now I've got, between those two, I've got a decently busy schedule in Michigan, and the personnel manager for those orchestras does a lot of contracting for other things. So in the before times, shall we call them, I was, pretty busy with stuff. I was driving a lot, but I was pretty busy and able to make ends meet.
Yeah, well, that's always good. I don't know if you have ever read any of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. Yeah, so it's like the whole idea of the way you fly is forgetting that gravity works.
Absolutely.
And there's a level of truth to that. Like when people talk about being in the zone or being in flow and things like that, you're not your conscious mind is redirected. So you're not thinking about processes. You're not worried about anything. You're just in that moment, and that's one of the reasons I got involved in martial arts as heavily as I did was because I had a lot of stage fright as a musician, as a trumpet player. It's like, put me in a section, I'm golden, but put me in front and I'm, cotton mouth and shaking and,
Yep.
and that sort of thing. And that was kind of a process that I went through to defeat that particular demon. And it was just getting to that point where it's like, you care, but you don't care, because if you can say, I did the work, I put in the time here, and now that I'm at this point where I'm doing my performance, all I can do is just do my best. And, you can't worry about those outcomes because you can't change that. If you did all the work that you could do in the past and you're doing the best you can do right now, then it's just time to let it go, man, and just let it flow.
And I would tell myself that. I could tell myself, yeah, I've done the work. I got to just go do what I can control. And if that's good enough, then cool, it's good enough. I could say it, but I didn't believe it.
Yeah. Well,
now I've internalized, I can believe it, that, just the circumstances of everything, and me and my, I'm me. I've got a different mind than everybody else. Just the circumstances that I went through, I can now actually believe myself when I say, okay, I've done the work. I'm going to go out and do this.
Right.
But it was, really, we could talk about trumpet playing and schooling and life and everything. I would say, like, that's been the start of my career, is when I was able to finally say that to myself and actually believe it. Everything that was that was the before, and this is the after.
Yeah.
I would say, and it's been very freeing too. Yeah. And that, and it's so stupid. Everybody's like, oh yeah, well, this is how you got to do it. It'll be really freeing. Well, it's like a psychologist in breakthrough moments. Like, some people have been telling me this for my whole life, but now I actually get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm glad that you shared that too, because, a couple things. One, there's no shame in hanging it up, right? Because if it's no longer serving you, then you need to walk away from it. And whether that's, trumpet, a job, relationship, whatever, when all of the joy has been sucked out of it, then, it's time. Yeah. Now, what I used to tell my martial arts students was, before you walk out the door, and quit and walk out the door, I guess that would be the way to go, would be, give me one more day, or give me one more cycle. It's like, okay, we're gonna be doing belt testing here in 6 weeks. So stick it out for 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, if you're still not feeling it, then by all means quit. But a lot of times what happens is that we become angry, frustrated, disappointed, whatever that unproductive emotion is, because I don't believe in negative emotions. I just believe there's unproductive emotions. All emotions serve a purpose. You need to have fear, you need to have anger, you need to have all of them. They're there for a purpose. But it's just when they're being used for the wrong purpose. It's like, using your 1.5C to play Maynard parts. It's not the right tool for the job.
That really resonates with me for some reason.
Yeah, for that cookie double C. But it's getting to the point where you can look at a situation and make that clear distinction between, is it the situation that's causing the problem, or is it so is it the situation of being in an audition that's a problem that I hate, or is it the trumpet that I hate? Because you can play trumpet and not go on auditions. But if this is the thing that you don't like, it's just, stopping to play the trumpet is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But it's in retrospect, it's real easy, to say, yeah, duh. But when you're in the midst of it, it's really, really difficult. And, especially regardless of whether the trumpet is just being the microcosm, any problem that we have in life, I think that's why community is so important, to bring it all back to that community thing. Mentors are so important. People speaking their truths and their experiences is so critical, because that's what lets you know that no matter what you're facing, somebody else has faced it and they've come out on it, or they come out the other side better and stronger for it. So, don't give up, whether giving up means, stop playing the trumpet, or giving up in some cases means people wanting to take their own lives. Don't give up. Talk to somebody. And for those of us who have struggled with things, that struggle with fears and anxieties and depression, and you name it, whatever you struggle with, if you've come through and you've got a story to tell, you need to tell your story, because there's somebody out there whose life, is really in many ways dependent upon your input, and your victory is going to make a difference to them. But if you're not sharing, I think that's the most selfish thing you could do.
Yeah. And the number of people that I've talked to, and I won't say any names because this is very, very private stuff, but the number of people that I've talked to, and they've had similar things go on, and it's ridiculous how prevalent this is. But the thing is, there's so many people that have gotten through it that if we sort of knew, and it's hard to talk about this stuff. It's not easy, but if people were more open about what they're going through, they could be like, well, yeah, I've got this friend that they went through something similar, and this is what they did to help. Like you said, it could be world changing for people. And I didn't really have a lot of people talking about it to me when I sort of figured all this stuff out, but it was. And it was a big question of, okay, do I hang up the trumpet completely and go be a welder and never play trumpet again? And actually, I just remembered what it was that sort of set me over the edge back to coming to play the trumpet is, this really depressive state that I was in my undergrad. I went through my Facebook friends list, and I looked. Other than family members, there were 5 people on my friends list that if I hadn't played the trumpet, I wouldn't know. Because literally everything that happened to me after 8th grade was because of the trumpet. Because I went to Jackson High School because they had a better band program than I did schools of choice. I went to Interlochen, everybody I knew from there, everybody that I met, and that was just a very sobering experience for me. And it was a combination of that, and I really, really want to give this shout out here. There's a woman in Michigan. Her name is Jean Moorhead-Libs. She is the sweetest, nicest, best person ever. A lot of people here call her Trumpet Mom, and it is 100% earned. She is the nicest, sweetest person ever, and she'll remind me fairly often, David, if you didn't play the trumpet, who would you be? You still need to be David at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. If you can't, if something happened, not saying I would quit, but let's say I'm in a car accident and I bite through my top lip and bite it off. Horrible, horrible visual there, by the way. Yeah, but, yeah. If you never played the trumpet again, who would you be? And that, ironically, thinking about not playing the trumpet again, that was the thing that helped get through that, is that, okay, well, maybe I'd be pretty miserable if I didn't ever play again. And I know for me, it was a question of, do I play or just never play trumpet again? But I know there's a lot of people out there that it's not a question of, do I play trumpet or not? It's a question of, well, do I want to play trumpet professionally? Or do I have, if I can make my salary doing something else and play trumpet at night, basically. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of stigma about that. But the beauty of that is if you disassociate trumpet or whatever your instrument is with making money, there's no quicker way to ruin something than my life and financial future depends on me doing this well. And that was another common theme in the second one, is I made a lot of decisions based off of money and finances and stuff. And not saying that you absolutely should be concerned with your financial future and how doing things are going to affect you financially, because that's very important. But, I would look at all these other things that are pretty important to me now, and I would just throw them out because financially this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I got really unhappy and bitter, and I figured out, well, yeah, this is it. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to be that person. And coming back full circle there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and this is where I'm a huge believer in asking the tough questions and of yourself, and that's you have to get to the real truth, and the only way you're going to get the real truth is to ask the real questions, and what so. Like in a trumpet analogy, this is a process I used to. Well, I'll use the martial arts analogy because it's the one that I use the most frequently. But it translates to anything. I would have students who would come to me because they wanted to be competitive athletes like I was. I had students who came to me because they had health issues. I had students who came to me because they wanted to learn self-defense. It's like, okay. And I had students came to me just because, they had a Tuesday night free and they wanted to do some activity with, their spouse, or they just wanted to be in a group class of some kind. And they said, martial arts sounds interesting. Yeah, let's try this. And it's like, look, I don't care why you're here, but to address your frustration, because I know everybody's going to get frustrated, you have to kind of pick your path a little bit. Not saying that you can't choose, but you have to understand that the way that you need to train to be a professional athlete is completely different than the way you need to train if you're recovering from a stroke, which is completely different from the way you need to train if you're just here for social purposes, which is completely, so all of these have different, you're doing the same thing, but the way you approach it, the mentality you have, and the trade-offs you have are all different. Because to train as a competitive athlete, if you're recovering from some serious physical injury, this is actually counterproductive. But if you want to be an athlete, to train like someone who's recovering from a stroke is counterproductive.
Yeah, exactly.
So, understand that you can still do the same thing, but but know that you need to maybe adjust the intensity or the focus, and understand that you're not going to be able to get all of these things with this approach. And so to bring it back to the trumpet, I was studying with a great teacher that was with the Army band for about 25 years, and I was in the middle of my running my school, and I didn't have a lot of time to practice, and I started studying with him, and I was really getting frustrated because he would give me assignments. I would go home, and as my business was building, I had days where I was at my studio teaching and running a business for 18 hours, and I just didn't have the time or the energy to practice. And I would come back and I go, John, I'm sorry, man, I didn't practice this and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, it's okay. And so we go back and forth. And I finally one day was like, look, man, I'm wasting your time. I'm wasting my time. I'm quitting. And he's like, well, why are you, when we first talked about you coming and taking lessons, why? Why did you want to take lessons? I said, I love playing the trumpet. He goes, well, is it something that you really love? I'm like, yeah, I love it. It's fun. He's like, well, then stop worrying about whether you're getting through these lessons. Let's just have fun.
Yeah.
If you're here to have fun, then let's have fun. If trying to make these improvements are putting pressure on you and you're not enjoying this, then you either need to quit, which I don't want you to do, or you need to quit thinking about it this way. I'm like, oh. And so I stopped putting pressure on myself, which actually ended up making me enjoy the lessons more, which actually ended up making more improvement. And it's just like creating that mindset that, hey, if I don't get to the lesson this week, if I don't, learn this etude, it's okay. It's okay, because I'm not trying to be a principal trumpet player in the Philadelphia. I'm not trying to do that. I just want to have fun playing, and I want to keep my chops up. So, that mindset really helped me out. So hopefully it'll help somebody out that's listening to this too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've had some deep conversation here today, which is okay. That's what I like doing. That's all good. But let's talk about something fun.
Yeah, man.
Something fun. So you have you've been doing the brass band stuff. That seems like that is a blast of a world to be involved in.
Oh my gosh, yes. And it, to sort of, we want to talk about fun stuff, but to really bring it full circle, because that's a recurring theme with me. Also, speaking of the brass band, I've got the Five Lakes Silver Band shirt on. The cool thing about brass bands is that it's not paid. Intrinsically, brass bands it's an amateur activity, and that's what makes it so cool, because everybody's there for the love of it. Nobody's there to just collect a paycheck and be on their way. It's one of the most challenging things you can do musically, I think. As a trumpet player, I would say, at least, just because playing cornet is like playing all sorts of string parts and clarinet parts. They're the bread and butter of all the technical stuff. And flugelhorn is actually, I play flugelhorn in Five Lakes Silver Band now, and that's a really fun thing because you've got to listen across. But brass banding is so cool. I could talk about it and not really get anywhere. Do you have any specific questions about the movement or anything?
No, just kind of what piqued your interest in it, and what would you suggest if someone was interested in exploring brass bands? What would be a good suggestion for them?
So I've been playing in brass bands since 2008 or 2009. I was, in early in high school, and here's the thing you got to know about me when I was in high school. When I turned 16, which was in my junior year of high school, so I'm pretty young for my grade level, or I'm no longer in school. But I turned 16 in my junior year, and I actually got pulled over twice for not looking old enough to drive by myself. So I had a couple friends in high school that had played with this local group called Capital City Brass Band. Capital City is in Lansing, Michigan. And I had always expressed interest in being a part of it. And eventually, one summer concert, they needed somebody to come in and fill in on the back row. So I sat bottom chair, third cornet, and I was having the time of my life. And playing I had a cornet, but playing a new instrument, playing a much deeper mouthpiece than I was used to, and it's really fun. My college in five and was also in Capital City at that time. And she has this really fun quote. Yeah, I was sitting there and I look over and I say, "Are they accepting middle schoolers in this group now?" And then he played, and I realized, what was going on. So I've been playing with him since then, and in the Capital City Brass Band, I've sat in every single cornet chair in that band at this point. It's really cool. Like I said, it's different kind of music. It exercises different parts of your. If you really want a technique workout and brass bands are for you, I personally love the sound of the cornet. I'm kind of to the point, again, back when I was like, I want to be principal trumpet David. If I didn't sound like that, then, I'm not going to get a job. I mean, if I could make money, if I could have a career playing only cornet and not trumpet, I'd do that in a heartbeat, man. You just don't make a lot of money playing just cornet. There's people that do it, but not here in North America.
Right.
So it's really fun. It's a beautiful sounding instrument. There's the vibrato aspect of it. If you've never played in a brass band before, the British band sound is the vibrato, and it's not an ornament to the sound. It is part of the sound. So, every note is supposed to have vibrato. That's obviously up to the band, and the style of the vibrato and everything is up to each band. But that is a change that you got to get used to. Traditional cornet mouthpieces are significantly deeper than what you would play otherwise, like if you were playing a Dixieland cornet or like a Clark cornet solo even. It is a different, it's very much deeper. The sound is a lot warmer and rounder. There's 4 solo cornets, sometimes 5, and they're all, the solo cornet part is the front row of the band, and those are like the hard bits. And so you have to really worry about and learn how to pace yourself and which role are you playing in the section. Are you sitting first solo cornet or the principal cornet? You're not gonna really mash your face in and smash all these technical licks out, because you have to play the pretty solos. And if you're really beating your face in on all this other stuff and you get to the pretty solo and you're tired, and you fall all over it, well, that's not quite right. Consequently, sitting second solo cornet, because first solo cornet doesn't do that. Second solo cornet, otherwise known as bumper, you're the workhorse there. Mm-hmm. You've got to do that, but also you will play some of these other stuff, and sometimes you have pieces where there's 4 different solo cornet parts, or other times you'll have 1 solo cornet part with 4-way splits. You ever see 4 lines all at once, or all on one staff, I should say. 4-way divisi on one staff. That's an art just to read that.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. Back row cornets, you have the soprano cornet with E-flat cornet, which is sort of like piccolo trumpet, combined with lead trumpet. I had this dream that I was going to do that, and I went out and bought a soprano cornet, and I don't like it. I can't do it. So if anybody wants to buy a soprano cornet, let me know. And I'm sort of joking about that. Some people, that's what they do and they really love it and they do it well. I am not one of those people. I have found out that I do not want to be a soprano cornet player. So that's one of those things that I just take away from myself. And then you have the Repiano cornet, which basically plays like you are second soprano. Like second trumpet would be in an orchestra. You are that to the soprano. You're sort of bridging the solo cornets and the soprano. You're the leader of the back row. You've got to fit underneath the soprano, support them. Second cornets is, sort of like a second or a third clarinet part almost. You do get some fun stuff in there and you get some different stuff, but at that point your sound reinforcement. And third cornet, a lot of people say, oh, well, third cornet, that part's not very hard. Those people have to be really strong players to have a really effective brass band. That those parts can still have a lot of really difficult technical stuff, and you can't hide back there, man. You gotta really put out sound to support everything else that's going on. So, and then the other cool thing about brass banding, like I said, it's all amateur by nature, and that's not a cut to amateurism. It's literally, that is the definition. You're not doing this for money, you're doing it for the love of it. And some of the best experiences I've had recently, Five Lakes Silver Band, we were all vaccinated in the band, which is really cool that we were able to get back together way sooner than some other people were.
Right.
And we went down to Kentucky for the Great American Brass Band Festival. And like anytime I've taken a trip with brass band people, one of the best experiences of my life. And I've played in some really awesome groups. I've been to Europe a lot of times for trumpet competitions when I was younger. And like nothing beats just the camaraderie and getting to play with your friends. And I'm blessed to be in a group where everybody is really cool people, in addition to sounding great. So, and also I have to give a huge shout out to Arkansas Music Works Brass Band. When I played with them, they had existed for a year, and we went out and won the U.S. Open Championship. And that trip was super cool. Every time I've gone down there to play with them, it's been great. I just haven't had the opportunity to go down and drive to Arkansas with the world as it is right now. But
Right.
They just actually gave a concert yesterday as of this recording, and I heard some clips of it, and they're doing really great stuff. going back to the competitive nature of it, yeah, like there's brass band championships and competitions. And some people can get really competitive and mean and nasty, but I would say the majority of brass banding is all about camaraderie and community.
Hey, how about there's that word again? It's the hang. It's the hang. See, that's
Oh,
what's,
I don't know anybody that can hang harder than brass band guys.
yeah.
From
All right. There you go. All right. Well, David, we have a couple segments we got to get through before we can wrap it up for the day. The first one is our obligatory nod to the gearhead in us, our geared up segment. Ooh, I know. I can see the goosebumps rising. Let's just talk a little bit about the gear using, and specifically, the question I want to. The way I want to steer this is, the whys, not so much the whats, but the whys.
Okay, where to start? Because I have a lot of stuff and I'm not just talking about trumpet stuff. So let's go on the production side of things. I shoot my video with a Sony A6600, and I've got a variety of lenses that I use that with. And why? For a while, I was using my iPhone, and if you knew High School Cookie, he always had a camera around his neck. And I know I always talk about when I quit trumpet, I'm going to go be a welder. For me, I was going to be either a photographer or a trumpet player. That's what I was going to do. And the deciding factor was the fact that I got into Interlochen, and that's why I chose trumpet. But there was actually, at that point in my life, I was actually making money off of photography with competitions and stuff I was entering, portraiture, yada, yada, yada. And I happened to get into Interlochen. So that's where we're going. Turns out there's a lot of trumpet players that are phenomenal photographers. It's this thing that just sort of seems to go hand in hand. There's a lot of non-trumpet players that are phenomenal photographers as well, but seems like when you start getting up there that a lot of trumpet players also have that as a hobby. So I recently purchased that camera as a sort of an investment into my production, my video production, and also because I want to get back into photography, and I'm now finally at a point in my life where I can afford a decent camera again. Microphones, I record into a Barkley Infinity ribbon microphone. I'm really good friends with Mike. I placed my order in like 2020. He had some supply chain issues, and my microphone got delivered a couple days after my birthday. That was a really cool birthday present. So I fully endorse his microphones. He's a great dude. He makes great stuff. He's a trumpet player. He knows how a trumpet should sound. And for me, I've got a lot of different toys. This microphone was way more expensive than his, but you notice I use it for voice, not for trumpet. So, just like all your trumpet stuff, you wouldn't play lead stuff on a 1.5C. You wouldn't record trumpet into this. For that, that's what I choose. And I've actually got a Gen 2 coming in the mail. So hopefully by the time this episode airs, I'll actually have a video out there, because Mike isn't making the Gen 1. There's going to be a video out there where I show you the difference between the Generation 1 and the Generation 2. And I've heard some side-by-side clips, and it's pretty cool. And as soon as my mic comes, I'm going to crank out that video pretty quick.
Looking forward to that.
Trumpet stuff. I am sponsored by Van Laar Trumpets and Flugelhorns. They are an amazing company. Really great people. They make great horns. It all started, one of my friends bought one of their horns at ITG in King of Prussia. Yeah, not Prince of Prussia, King of Prussia.
King of Prussia.
At the casino there. And Hoob said, hey, if you're ever in the area, the factory. And later that summer, I happened to be flying through Brussels and ended up taking a trip up to the factory, and I picked up my B-flat trumpet there. It was one of those instances with all of his horns, actually. I pick up the thing, and everybody in the room stops what they're doing, and they're like, oh, that's the one. I'm like, ah, crap, I got to buy this now. So I have a B flat trumpet that's gold plated, and it's amazing. I absolutely love that horn. I have a C trumpet that I bought shortly after that. That one's amazing. It's got a lot of hours on it. I have really acidic sweat. I eat through horns really badly, and I actually wore a hole in the first valve knuckle going into the bell on that horn, and I had to get a patch on that, and that horn's got a lot of love in it. Last summer, I bought a Van Laar cornet and sort of rounded out the set, and I was big into brass banding, and I played cornet in the brass bands, and that was a really solid investment for me. And then I always thought, I just don't play enough flugelhorn to warrant really having a good one. As it turns out, I didn't play enough flugelhorn because I didn't have a good one. It's sort of cyclical. Go. So earlier last year, I put in an order for this. It's a 4-valve low register flugelhorn, so I can now play from as high as I can play, which we're not going to talk about what my upper limit is because it's always changing, but I can play chromatically down to pedal C sharp, which is a half step above double pedal C. So I can actually play lower on the flugelhorn than I can on the bass trumpet. And I can play it in tune, very solid upper register, up to high G, above high C is usable on that horn. So this will be a good segue. I've got a bunch of other horns there, but Van Laar is the one that I really want to talk about. I got a Schilke piccolo, a Getzen bass trumpet. I have a tenor horn because brass banding. Blackburn E flat. It's the best horn I've ever bought. I've wanted to sell it a couple times. I've tried other E flats. Nothing ever actually comes close to touching it, so that's my why on that horn. I've really tried to get rid of it. It's got this phantom valve issue. Man, that horn hates playing the Haydn trumpet concerto. Everybody, da-dee-wa-dum. It's the only time it'll consistently stick, second valve coming up there. I can do all sorts of trills. I can do Clark studies on it, whatever. No problem. That spot right there. Horn hates it. It just, no, we don't want to play the Haydn trumpet concerto.
Yeah, I don't blame it.
What else have I got? Weimar, rotary C trumpet. The Y, they're so good. Really awesome C trumpet, really awesome rotary trumpet. I flew down from Thunder Bay to Chicago, and I was in Chicago less than 12 hours to buy this horn, and I spent more time on a plane because you have to fly Thunder Bay to Toronto to Chicago instead of going just straight north and south. But yeah, that's just such a good horn. I got that. I had another rotary trumpet that it's a fantastic horn. I really love the horn. It just was not the right sound for orchestra auditions, and had feedback from a couple auditions that it would have been a yes, but your rotary trumpet playing was a no. So mouthpieces, the exciting thing. I have to give a really quick shout out. I was in Montreal, and I was having like this problem, and I could play Shostakovich 5. I could play all day, but endurance, short-term endurance was an issue, or as Chris Smith would call it, stamina. And I would be like, well, yeah, this is a problem. And I talked to one of my teachers, and they'd say, just do more flexibility, or more lip bends, or more long tones. I was doing all of these things because somebody would tell me to do them, and I was a basket case. I was spending way too much time on fundamentals, and it wasn't really helping. Finally, Chris Smith says, go see Phyllis Stork. She's in northern Vermont. And go see Phyllis, rent a car, drive down there. What she tells you is the law. You will do it, and it will be good for you. So I went to go see her, and have a complete and total break. I have a lot of breakdown moments. Complete and total breakdown in her shop. I've been subbing with the Montreal Symphony, absolutely on top of my game, and I'm in her shop, and we're back. Okay, this is how you form an embouchure and play a G in the staff. Straight up 180. because she looked at me and she goes, well, what you're doing, you have 5, maybe 10 years left in you, and you're not going to be able to play the trumpet anymore just because of and I've got scar tissue. So that actually dictates what I play now. And very, very positive thoughts about the Storks. I love John and Phyllis. They're fantastic people. They make really great stuff. However, when I bought my Van Laar cornet, it was at the East Coast Trumpets table. Ben Strickland was working with Greg Black, and he handed me this brand new prototype Greg Black UK cornet mouthpiece. And I loved it, but because of the scar tissue that I was mentioning, it didn't have my rim on it. It wasn't working for me. So I sent a mouthpiece down. They copied the rim and put that on there. And then when I bought my flugelhorn through Ben at East Coast Trumpets, I also bought a Greg Black flugelhorn mouthpiece as well. So I play those. They just let me sound the way I want, and I really like it. And then recently I've been working with Doug McVeigh at Venture. Ben actually had my mouthpiece, and I saw Doug had a live stream on Facebook with Positive Trumpeters Worldwide, and Ben said something in the chat, and Doug goes, hey, Ben, I got a gig with you tomorrow. So I quickly sent Ben a message. I'm like, hey, man, have you shipped my mouthpiece out to me yet? He goes, no, I still got it. I'm like, okay, bring it to your gig tomorrow. I want Doug to mess with it. So we scanned it in, and he sent me this really cool write-up of, okay, what you play is weird, but here's why it's weird. And it was, the mouthpiece, it was something that Phyllis set me up with, and it was for a specific purpose. It was to address something with this, and I had outgrown that. I've grown past that, and nothing against the Storks. They're just 700 miles away, and it's been a pandemic, so I sort of went a different avenue. Yeah. It's hard to drive to Vermont in the middle of not going through Canada, and it's a significantly longer drive not to go through Canada.
Yeah.
But so Doug and I worked on a mouthpiece, scanned it in. I had some ideas about what to do. We came up with 3 prototype tops, 3 prototype backbores, and quickly eliminated it down to one combination that worked. And thus born was the Cookie Double C.
The Cookie Double C.
Not a commercial mouthpiece at all. We went with some really bizarre naming schemes. Doug loves it. I love it. I love telling people I play the double C and then go play Petrushka and it sounds good.
Yeah.
We came up with a rotary mouthpiece actually out of that same batch of prototypes. One combination happened to work really well on rotary. We just designed a mouthpiece and it's out for plating right now. It's called the Big Boy. GBOI, again with the crazy naming scheme, and it's a flugelhorn mouthpiece, but it's got a tenor horn rim on it for really accessing that 4th valve all the way down to double pedal C. Basically a bass trumpet mouthpiece for flugelhorn.
Nice.
And just this morning, I picked out a lead mouthpiece from the Lead Kit, LEDE. And this morning was a total face beatdown, and I've never been that kind of player, but this mouthpiece, it works, man. You should check it out. It's ridiculous. I've never been that consistent, that kind of sound. When I say that kind of sound, I'm not talking actual, I don't sound like Wayne Bergeron. That's not right now, not gonna happen. But I've never experienced where I can actually let the mouthpiece do the work and back off because of what I've played. And Doug, he's helped me out with that. So I'm really excited about that and the stuff that's coming out from that recording session. So that'll be really cool.
Very nice. Looking forward to hearing some A-B comparisons there.
Yeah, man. And I can talk about gear all day long, so I think that's a good stopping point.
That's a good stopping point. Okay. All right, well, we're going to go to our final segment. This is brought to us by good friends at Robinson's Remedies. Can't even say it right now. Robinson's Remedies, rapid fire round. And I know that you've been practicing for this, Cookie.
I've been studying.
You have been studying. I almost came up with a whole new bunch of questions just for you, just to throw you off. But we'll make this like a standard audition here. All right. So here we go, Cookie. You know the deal. A series of questions all over the place. Need your fastest response. And if you get everything right, you get a special prize.
Ooh.
I lied. So here we go. First question for you. Who's the biggest influence on your life that's not a trumpet player?
I would say my brother.
All right. What's your favorite book?
Oh, man, I forgot this one.
Stumped.
I would say outside of trumpet, let's go with, oh gosh, I forget what the name is. It's by Lenny Bassham. He's an Olympic shooter, and he talks about the subconscious, the conscious, and the ego. How all three of those, with winning in mind by Lenny Bassham. That's what it is.
With winning in mind, I'll have to check that out. That sounds interesting.
Oh, it's great. And I'll just quickly go on this. The whole concept of the book is basically he's an Olympic shooter, and the whole book can be summed up by he had a match where he scored a 98 out of 100, so 10 shots, each one marked 1 to 10, and somebody asked him, well, why'd you get a 9 on those 2 shots? And his response was, why are you asking about the 2 9s when you should be asking about the 8 10s that I got? And how did I do that? So, it's a really cool book.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
I'll have to check that one out. That sounds like something I would enjoy reading. All right. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Drive Hard with John Cusack.
No hesitation. Zero hesitation on that one. All right. If you weren't a trumpet player, what would you want to be?
Well, I've said it before, a welder, but photographer.
Photographer. Okay.
Trumpet maker, mouthpiece maker. I don't.
How about a photographer who only takes pictures of welding?
There's a lot of Instagram accounts for that person. So,
how about a welder who only works on cameras?
I don't think that would work out very well.
I'm trying to be creative here. All right. What's your favorite drink?
Water.
Water.
Obviously I'm not skinny. In the past I would have said like Dr. Pepper or something. But we're working on it, and we've got a reverse osmosis unit here at home.
Oh, nothing like that, man.
Oh, it's like, like they say in Waterboy, good clean H2O. I mean, like this stuff, nothing comes close to it.
You can do it. All right. Speaking of you could do it, you could have a dinner party, invite any 3 living people. Who would they be? Barack Obama's not allowed.
Yeah. Mike Barkley, because I love that dude, but I've never met him.
Okay.
And I'd really love to. Doug McVeigh, for very similar reasons.
Yeah.
And John Kaplan. John and I have known each other for well over 10 years, and we have never met in person. And in addition to like me just getting to meet those guys, I think that would be a really awesome hang, the 3 of us.
All right, sounds good. Same dinner party. Any 3 living people, or not living? Any 3 people from history?
Yep. Oh gosh. It's a good question. Maynard, Maurice Andre, and Morris Murphy.
Ooh, man. Good combination there. All right. Lacquer plated or raw?
Gold plated or palladium plated. Not silver plated because I can't. My hands kill it way too quick. Gold plating holds up well. Palladium plated, that horn is it's holding up really well so far. I'm not a huge fan of lacquer, so I would say raw, but my hands eat through that too.
Yeah.
I'm not built for playing a trumpet for very long.
Yeah, well, yeah. I used to have a palladium plated horn, and it was beautiful, beautiful horn.
Oh, it's so nice.
It's shot blasted palladium. Mm-hmm. Yeah, gorgeous horn.
Gorgeous.
All right. What's your favorite quote?
Be the change you want to see in the world. And I know that's, super cliche, but like it is,
It's the truth.
If you want to change something in the world, you got to do it, man.
Yep. It's got to start somewhere, and starts with you. All right. What is your greatest fear?
Well, heights are a thing. Shots. don't know.
Like taking shots or getting shots?
Getting
Oh,
shots.
okay.
I can sort of manage now. The COVID vaccine was like one of those things. Is like, well, I hate this, but if it means I can go back to work, I'll deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. You could be granted one superpower. What would it be?
Time stoppage.
Time stoppage.
I could have as much time in the world as I need for whatever I want to do.
Time management, right there. That'd be your superhero name, the time manager.
That or teleportation. If I could like go to any gig anywhere, but if it's time stoppage, I could get anywhere and be there. See?
Yeah, I see. Okay. I just suddenly I had this image of the time manager. He's like this guy with a big clock, on his symbol here, but he's also got like a tie and a little
A pocket protector.
Yeah, pocket protector, exactly. Little duct tape there on the nose of the glasses. All right. You're able. No. Let's go back. What aspect of trumpet playing do you feel is the most overrated?
Most overrated. Breathing.
Okay, that's an.
We've been doing it all our lives.
Oh, that's a very good point. Very good point. What aspect do you think is the most underrated?
Making a tone. Really sound.
Sound.
I feel like so many people go through education, be middle school, high school, whatever, even into the collegiate level, and sound never gets addressed. That's literally what differentiates you from literally any other trumpet. I said literally twice, but it's what differentiates you from everybody else. So you need to work on it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. You're able to go back in time, give your younger self one piece of advice about music. What would it be?
Know your worth and don't settle for anything less than what you deserve.
All right. And what's the advice you'd give yourself about life?
Well, it would be the same.
It'd be the same.
But, there's always going to be opportunities available what you make.
Okay, cool. Final question for Cookie. Drum roll, please. What do you want your legacy to be?
Wherever I went, I made a lasting improvement.
That's a good
Meaning
one.
like with people and relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Talking about being the change, That's what it means, man. Making that difference. So, Cookie, David, whatever we're going to call you today. I appreciate your time. It's been
Likewise.
great getting to know you, and we had some running conversations via Facebook Messenger, and it's like, okay, this is going to be a good hang. So,
I was so excited for this, man. This is going to be great.
well,
It was great. It's not going to be. It happened.
Yes, it has happened, and so, but thanks again, really, and thanks for being real with me, and sharing some stuff, and I know a lot of times sharing that stuff isn't easy, but it makes, speaking from experience, it makes you feel better, and it makes you better because you're helping other people to feel better and to be better. So,
Absolutely.
you're doing a thing. So keep building the community. And speaking of community, thank you very much for joining our Trumpet Gurus Hang community. And make sure that you're liking and subscribing and sharing these episodes, and support all of our guests, and especially support Cookie, because he needs a little love these days. But who doesn't? But so go to his YouTube page, and make sure you subscribe to that. Keep on top of those videos he's doing. If you're interested in doing the Trumpet Multi-track Competition, keep an eye out for that to see what's coming up in the future. And just in general, stay hip with Cookie, because he's a pretty happening dude. He's a pretty happening dude. I have to give it to him. So
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'm
Appreciate it.
looking forward to having a hang in real life with some reverse osmosis cocktails.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And-
Can't wait till. Not a huge TB guy, but next year is going to be epic.
Yes. Very good. That's what we want to hear. All right, so thanks for joining us on this episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang, and as always, peace and slide grease. We out. Thanks for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating deeper connections through our mutual love of music and the trumpet life. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and also like and share this episode with a friend. We want to see the Hang grow for show. Please support our sponsors and consider becoming a personal supporter of this podcast as well. Remember, for less than the price of a bottle of valve oil a month, you can keep this podcast moving smoothly. The Trumpet Gurus Hang is recorded at the Candy Factory, a co-working space and social club located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Jose Johnson is the executive producer. Post-production editing is by Mitch Bowers. Our opening theme song was composed and performed by Lexi Signor, and our closing theme music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. Incidental music is by Ethan Swayze and Jose Johnson. Graphic design by Ann Kirby of the Sweet Corps. The Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast is produced in collaboration with the So Good Lancaster Media Group.